Alright, stopped at Buc-ee's in Auburn, Alabama. Got some gas, got some food. Now, on to the next leg of this trip. It's 6 hours to Baton Rouge. I think I'm still on Eastern time. No, I'm on Central. And I don't think I'm going to go to Baton Rouge. I think I'll stop somewhere around Biloxi or Gulfport, Mississippi. I've actually already got a spot picked. It's 289 miles, 4 hours and 10 minutes. I'll decide in a couple hours. Got some coffee, snacks. A little bummed out. I actually forgot some food I had pre-cooked in the fridge at home. Oh well. Oh, I should have been in that lane. I'm okay. Yeah. I gotta get on the southbound anyways, not the northbound. Maybe you should have been in the right lane too. Now time to catch up all the people that passed me after I passed them earlier. Car says it's 81 degrees out, but it didn't feel 81. Yeah, 88's more like it. That's what the phone says. We might have some thunder and lightning here in a couple hours.
I don't consider a lot, Chris. Well, you drank an entire case of athletic brewing last night, but they're non-alcoholic. That's not a problem. Sorry, man. I just kept chugging away for the regret to creep in. Never happened. See, most people, like Jared, don't want to change what they drink. They just don't want the next day to be a complete write-off. That is why I'm such a huge fan of Athletic Brewing Co. They make the best NA brews on the planet. You can find Athletic Brewing Co.'s best seller. There's a great line that I came across and I want to read to you guys. It's from Salhi Gune. It says, "You'll regret it if you get married. You'll regret it if you don't get married. You'll regret it if you have kids. And you'll regret it if you don't." Kierkegaard said this 200 years ago as follows: "Whatever you choose, you'll regret it. Because the problem isn't in your choices, it's in romanticizing a life."
Grass is always greener.
A person always finds an untraveled path alluring and mysterious. That's why the issue isn't making the right choice, it's choosing and deciding which regret you'll live with. And that was that Douglas Murray line, "In life, we must choose our regrets." And you go, okay, in advance of a big decision, you might want to think, which decision do I want to live with? But the better question is, which regret could I not bear living with? Yeah, that's it's a little like if you're, someone who can be a perfectionist about finding your life partner. It's like which flawed person and flawed relationship are you going to choose? And each one's going to have a different set of flaws. And I think in both of these cases, internalizing that is very helpful because it can make you realize that if I have regrets, it doesn't mean something horribly wrong now. If this if marriage is imperfect, it doesn't mean I did something wrong. Like so it can help you accept, which is half the battle. I mean, it's like regret is only really painful when you feel like I wish I made it worse, as opposed to this is a call that I made. Yeah, so thinking about pendulums swinging in one direction or the other, going from we were worried about binge drinking in 2010 when I wrote my dissertation, and now in 2026 we're worried about sobriety culture coming and taking away the way that people are able to communicate and spend time and socialize. An equivalent to this, I think, and I've messaged Scott Galloway about this too, as a famously unmarried man in his 30s, the conversation of you don't need to think that deeply about your life partner to now a lot of the biggest reels that Scott's done and Warren Buffett, the single most important decision that you're going to make in your life is your life partner. This is a piece of advice that distributes unevenly to people. It makes people who are already prone to overthinking feel even more pressure. Meanwhile, the people that were just say making decisions on vibes are just coasting through it, and it's applying even more pressure. I think it's a noble insight, which is, hey, this is an important decision, and if you choose wrong, it can make your life hell. But the don't choose wrong turns into I must perfect. I must become a perfectionist in choosing right, and it creates paralysis of analysis. This is David Epstein's new book, Inside the Vault. Fucking money, by the way, really, really good.
Yeah, it's really
but yeah, that
what's the basic premise?
That
I have an old book I went to.
Constraints breed creativity.
Oh yeah.
If I mean, he is really great at bringing stories together, but he has this what's it called, the Magic Company. What was that? It was all of the engineers from Apple, and it was the first ever Goldman Sachs idea IPO. So they didn't even have a product, but they just had such an amazing team that they IPO'd just with ideas, and they were able to do. They had unlimited budget. They IPO'd before they had a product. He gives this example of a story where they were going to create basically the iPhone before the iPhone. And one of the engineers said, I'm going to run it from 1904. Let's say it's going to be 100 years, something like that. And another engineering team came in and said, well, why do it from then? Why not do it from further back? Because people might be using apps for historical recording and stuff. So, okay, well, I'll do it from year zero. And we'll get up to 2004, whatever it is. And another team came in and said, well, that's stupid. Why don't you go all the way back to the beginning of time? So that we've got a full calendar that people can, and it ended up what could have been 4 lines of code turned into this huge unwieldy project.
This is General Magic.
If you don't, the General Magic, that was it.
There's a great documentary on this, and it's also like, if I can interject for a second, it's like Jodorowsky's Dune. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this documentary. It's about this ill-fated attempt to make a Dune movie, which was just, I guess it was made by this crazy man named Jodorowsky, and it goes through all these disasters, and
there's a 15-minute slowdown caused by construction on I-85 South in 1 mile.
It goes through all these disasters, and it didn't work out, but the team ended
It
up
could have gone the other way,
Geiger,
but I wasn't too sure about that one. It saved me the last time, so I'm just going to suffer in the
that
traffic.
field project was so high, it's hard to believe. This is true of General Magic too, right? You had like very, very young Tony Fadell who went on to create the iPod and the iPhone. You've got the person who went on to create Android. It's kind of nuts. And despite that, or in spite of having this incredible talent density, it's like if you don't have constraints, well, if you have a lot of brilliant people with a lot of ideas, that could actually be a fatal recipe.
Right. Yeah, constraints.
This is another, which I said, coming up with the term is really important. Well, it's also just like, I don't know, just getting a certain like anchor concept that can help anchor your rationality. So like one of the things I've always thought about with relationships for perfection, because I'm like this, and one of the times when I was able to kind of like finally,
Pull the pin.
yeah, is because I think I grew up a little bit and was in enough relationships when I was like, again, the fact that like they're all flawed, every single one. So but you also don't want to be like, well, they're all flawed, so this relationship is fine when it's actually really bad. Like, right? So it's more like, what are of there if there's 30 things you would love to have in a partner, you're 100% going to be missing a bunch of those in every partner. But what are your deal breakers? Like, actually think about 2 or 3 or 4. Don't get too much with these that are like, this is critical to me. Like, I will not marry someone who does not, whatever.
I was going to say on both sides of the fence, because there can be things that you must not have
Yes.
and things that you must have.
Exactly. And I think it's a mistake. It's not being perfectionist enough to sacrifice on those deal breakers. And I think it's being way too much of a perfectionist to be like, it's like she's not, she doesn't love to jam music with me. And I did that with my previous girlfriend, and that's a must. You can't have a ton of those, or you're never going to no one's ever going to be enough.
One of the biggest issues in relationships that people don't talk about enough are bedtime lag issues.
Yes.
Like, if you don't go to bed and wake up within maybe an hour of your partner, I think that there's a lot that you're missing. Like, just literally you're missing out on a lot of time together. But I think it causes an awful lot of friction between you and your partner, because like, you're going to be woken up when they get into bed. They're going to be woken up when you get out of bed. Sleep's really important. There's health effects. You're going to begin to resent them if they come in at a different time. Maybe some people are laissez-faire enough or a deep enough sleeper that it doesn't really matter. But I think aligning the sleep rhythm is probably one of the sort of unseen. That should be in order to get into the conversation, that's probably across the board a piece of advice that most people should.
I'll play devil's advocate just because I have historically had very
Big
strange
sleep gap relationship.
Yeah, I mean, it's some very good relationships, including my current relationship, but it's a few hours, I would say. Very often it's like 1 to 2 hour gap. She'll get up before I do. I think it can work if you are okay with going to bed at different times. Also, as soon as you have a puppy or a child, like, you're on the same schedule.
Because or someone's doing the morning, the other person's going to sleep. So actually,
It might actually be adaptive.
Yeah.
If you've got someone that goes to bed at 3 a.m, typically, you're like, okay, well, you're obviously going to do the night shift up until 3. And then if your missus is usually getting up at 5, so all right, we'll just run that back a little bit earlier. And then
I usually am up a little later, and I'll usually like close down the house and like clean up the kitchen a little bit, like turn off all the lights and like
And
take
off
the
the
dog
lights.
out, and then like she'll be more likely to wake up and do morning stuff.
before we move on from terms, we are still struggling to fucking name this podcast series. It's currently Rabbit Hole, which is the working title, but we're still struggling. Was it fuck me, good dudes, good vibe, Rabbit Hole?
It's pretty good.
Fuck me. Yeah. Fire up the autism engine was another one, obviously. But yeah,
What's wrong with this rabbit hole? Describe what we've done today. We've just gone down 20 rabbit holes and underground burrow to a different rabbit hole and then come back
It's
out.
funny the power of a name, right? Here's a little test for you.
here we go.
Have you ever heard of a book called Women, Love and Relationships?
No.
No, because nobody fucking did. Right, so this book released, I think it was in the 80s or the 90s, sold nothing. So he came along, changed the title, and just jazzed it up a little bit to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and it was the best-selling book of the 90s. And just it was the same book, different title.
Well, it's like, when was the last time you had Patagonian toothfish? Not recently, right? Chilean sea bass?
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Question. Given that we've got 2 authors and 1 fledgling author at the table, what is a book that you think is amazing but failed because of its name?
Ooh, great question.
So my kind of go-to for this is a little bit niche, but it's Mate by Tucker Max and Jeffrey Miller. To become the man women want. It's an evolutionary psychology inspired dating book for men.
Is that a bad title or is it just too generic?
I just think it should have done, because Models by Mark Manson also are more magic, would have been, because it's still great, it's sold like relatively well, but could have been significantly better for what it was. Made by Tucker Max and Jeffrey Miller is one of the best, if not the best book for guys to understand how women think, understand what their fears are. It's very like sort of both sides of the spectrum in terms of being understanding about women, being pro men without being too apologetic, and it fucking rips. And I think they even renamed it once. I'm not sure why, but that's just one that comes to mind. Fuck, that book was so good, and it didn't take off. And I feel like there was a big unlock in the name.
I think with a book, it helps. I think with like certain things like a company or even like a blog, maybe it's like XKCD. I think if I were advising my friend before that started, I would have been like, No one's
Do you
just
want to
four
explain what-
random letters. Like
explain,
no one's gonna
explain what
remember.
that is. Yeah.
Someone will be like, you should read that blog that has the 4 letters. And they'll be like, what? It's obviously a massive success.
You want to explain what it is for people?
XKCD is Randall Monroe's. He's this, brilliant he's a, he does a 3 comic Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He also puts out books.
It's like a comic strip.
Yeah, it's a comic strip, but it's like nerdy and science, and it's amazing. And it has a
It's
giant
been around forever.
yeah cult following. Yeah, he's been doing it forever, and he probably gets more reads than like anything in like the comics and the newspapers these days. He's probably bigger than but maybe maybe it would be even bigger. I mean that is true. I don't know. I think people say, what's your blog name? Wait, but why? What? And I'm like, I'm sorry. And I was looking on GoDaddy, and I was like, I need a domain that has a .com, and I had my 100th idea, and I was like, okay, that's one. And I had like a small list of ones that actually had .coms, and I was like, sure. I think like it names in certain situations are overrated. I think with books, probably not. I think books maybe is something that it's but I think I think company names. I think there's a lot of really dumb company names.
Yeah,
there.
I think it depends a lot on the nature of the company. I'm literally having this conversation with one startup right now,
Mhm.
like whether to keep or change. And in their case, I don't think it matters because they're B2B and selling in a very like long sales cycle to sophisticated buyers, as opposed to a product that is B2C, where it's like a consumer facing product where you want people to be able to easily say, hey, have you tried X? And if they can't remember X, you're kind of dead in the
Yeah.
water. I do have a book example.